Why don't we move on to Birds of Prey, though? Talking about that Harley Quinn, dog. After an amazing showing in an amazing superhero movie, Suicide Squad, Harley
Academy
Quinn
Award
is
winning
back.
Suicide Squad. Don't you forget it.
Yes, more Academy Awards than The Irishman
That's correct.
and Gangs of New York combined. Kind of
And
crazy.
Avengers Endgame.
um, yeah. So Suicide Squad comes out a couple of years ago. Not
2016.
not
Oh,
much not much good to say about that movie, but I think
no.
one of the things that came out of it was Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Pretty good. We enjoyed her performance. She seems to fit the role well. She's obviously incredibly captivating every time she's on screen, no matter
Yep.
the role. And then DC rolled out their plan, and Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey has been on the radar for a while. Finally dropped this weekend, starring outside of Robbie, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress, Journey Smollett Bell as Black Canary, Rosie Perez playing Renee Montoya, police officer. Who else is Ewan McGregor?
Black Mask.
Yeah,
Chris Messina as Victor Zsasz. Some
and where's the girl here?
a lot of well-known
Ella J.
Batman
Basco.
Batman rogues, but definitely lesser-known characters than say
Definitely.
Suicide Squad, which gave you Joker and Harley Quinn and a Batman cameo, and even other popular people like Deadshot. So definitely I think the movie definitely makes a point of wiping its hands of Suicide Squad, right? Maybe even almost too much. There's almost too much looking back at the Joker's absence in the actual story, not just in the meta-ness of the movie itself. Definitely. But yeah, it's definitely a new take, a new direction. You can look at that just from the way the camera works. Margot is not like lustily filmed this time. Nope. As the attractive woman that she is. It's like actually a little bit more mature and just not as gross as it was before, where she was just like kind of fetishized.
Yeah.
So it's certainly a welcome improvement from the first time.
Yeah, I mean, you even think about Harley Quinn's introduction in Suicide Squad, where she's like hanging from the jail cell with those like bed sheets, and it's just like they were going for something completely different in this movie than they were here. Basically the setup is Harley Quinn, the Joker have broken up. Harley Quinn is looking to find a way to make it known that she's independent, doesn't need no man. So she blows up a chemical plant, and it sets off this chain of events. Kind of driven along also by the MacGuffin of this jewel that has these
Bertinelli diamond.
Yes, and it has these codes to get all this money in the Swedish bank account. Because the Bertinelli family was murdered when the Huntress was very small. That's one of the twists of it. So I won't. Yep. I'll try not to go too far into it.
Well trodden ground for Huntress backstory.
So I guess before we get too far into it, this is a movie that has an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, getting very well reviewed critically. Only made 33 million this weekend though. Maybe not very well reviewed, but positively reviewed, we'll say. How are you feeling about Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, Dave?
I feel good about it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's definitely in my top 3 for these DCEU movies. I think I probably still like Shazam a little bit more. But between those two and Wonder Woman, those are my favorite ones. Yeah. The box office is very eyebrow raising, to say the least, just because kind of everything was leading up to Birds of Prey doing really well. It had really no competition in terms of an event film at this time. I mean, Bad Boys for Life, which was a surprise hit in its own right, I mean, that had already been out for 3 weeks. And before that, the last event movie was, I guess, Star Wars. So it's like you kind of look at the breakdown, and it's just like the continued success of holdovers like 1917 and Bad Boys that are just kind of taking its lunch. But I think part of it might be the really like obnoxious title, the subtitle in particular. Like maybe if we just called this Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey or something a little simpler, it might have got the message across. I'm not sure. because superhero movies, you kind of assume that they're just baked in success, right?
Hmm.
But this did 20 million less than Shazam, which already was a modest success. So it just seems like a kind of a rejection of sorts by the audience, and maybe a marketing mishap as well. And it's rated R, and I think Deadpool and Joker maybe have misaligned our expectations for how R-rated movies are supposed to perform. I'm not sure, but maybe that was also a miscalculation. I don't know. I'm happy the movie's good, and I would like to see them maybe go down a Gotham City Sirens path down the line with maybe bringing Batgirl into the fold. That's the one missing link to all of this. But yeah, it's a very peculiar box office. It's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, I thought the movie was pretty good. I'm not gonna say it's a good movie. I think it's a bit of a mess sometimes in the way that it's structured, and that might even be intentional at points. Like, it's told from the perspective of Harley Quinn for most of the movie, so I think it's supposed to make you feel a little bit like the manic, depressive Harley Quinn in this.
Very Halsey.
Yes, and, like the specifically, there's a scene where you see her saying parlay, and then the next scene you see her in, she's shooting up a police station. Then they have to rewind in her mind to explain things. So to me, like, some of that works, some of it doesn't. I just feel like maybe trying to come up with an explanation for why this movie didn't do as well as it was expected to. Maybe it was Oscar weekend, and I don't know the numbers of how movies usually do when they're released on Oscar weekend, but I know a lot of people this weekend who are using this time to watch Marriage Story or The Two Popes or other Oscar movies that they can watch at home because they wanted to catch up before they watched tonight. Now, that doesn't mean that counts for everybody. My theater was fairly full when I went, but it just feels like this isn't a movie that was very memorable in my book either. Like, I don't think this is a movie that I'm gonna go and tell my friends, like, you gotta go see this. Like, it's good, it's fine,
right,
but
yep,
it's not amazing. So I don't know. Overall, I think this is a win for DC because it seems like this is probably their most intriguing character beyond Wonder Woman. Shazam obviously is also up there, as you mentioned. Aquaman seems like it might also be a hit for them, and if we ever get the Flash, that might also be. So they might really be finding their footing. But I don't know. The only real thing that's gonna be memorable to me about this is Ewan McGregor's outfits. I mean, dog, his wardrobe was flames the whole time.
Yeah, I kind of like the way they slightly tweaked Black Mask as kind of being like a trust fund brat. I like that little spin on it. And Ewan McGregor is really bringing this kind of malevolent energy to his line readings the whole time. So I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed his energy with Zaz. I think Messina played Zaz slightly understated while still making it very clear he's a psychopath. That's a little different than him being, I think, much more on the nose in the comics and whatnot. But yeah, you're right. I think you read the reviews. You look at that Rotten Tomatoes, that 80%. And you're like, I mean, everyone's saying, yeah, it's pretty good, and no one's saying it's amazing, and like it doesn't. I don't think it reaches the highs of like a Wonder Woman does. And I think Shazam does. I think it's just a little tighter storytelling. But yeah, I kind of liked the nonlinearity in the early goings, just because I think it fit that manic energy as you were mentioning. It kind of felt like the way a Harley story would be told to us. It was certainly a choice, though. You're right. But yeah, at the end of the day, there's a kind of simple MacGuffin, and then Cassandra Cain is just kind of being the wielder of the MacGuffin,
right?
And
a vehicle for Harley Quinn's humanity in this, to like show
right, and ultimately. And so we're going to get Harley Quinn again next year in The Suicide Squad, August 2021 from James Gunn. That's like almost done filming. Maybe they hedged a little bit on what Harley is, because Harley's just kind of like deranged and clearly off her rocker in Suicide Squad. This time, she seems a little bit more well-intentioned, if still, not having all her marbles for sure. But she kills the bad guys, but doesn't kill the cops. You know, it's like they almost kind of hedged how bad or mean they wanted to make her,
Hmm.
which is then kind of weird because like the R rating just allowed for some extra violence and some cursing. I do think a lot of the action when it happened, I enjoyed. It was pretty badass. Like when she slams on that guy's leg in like
Yeah,
the club, that was brutal.
a lot of
Um,
legs being broken in this.
yeah.
It's tough
Uh,
stuff.
and like there was talk of reshoots again, not an uncommon thing with franchise films, but you wonder if maybe they wanted to like reset the ball. It just didn't that be the main goal for this kind of reset the Harley character. But again, the box office suggests that the Harley character is not as big a draw as we might have expected. Again, she's a very popular, albeit new, relatively speaking, character from the animated series, but that's a really small number, man. So I don't know where they go from here. But again, we're going to see her in Suicide Squad, and that'll be as part of an ensemble once again. So it'll be a long time before I think we're considering a solo or Harley and Friends movie once again. But yeah, this is directed by Kathy Yan. She only has one film to her credit, Dead Pigs. That wasn't even released here in the U.S. Kind of strikes me as a Marvel hire, a Marvel of old anyway, where you hire someone who's a little inexperienced or on the rise, that you can adapt them to what you want. And you know, Harley was involved in the production of this, so you wonder how much creative juice DC really brought to it, or they were just kind of happy just to put it out. Because like Shazam, this is a modestly budgeted for a superhero movie. It's like under 100 million. So, yeah, overall, I have positive thoughts on it. So I thought it was pretty fun. I enjoyed Matthew Libatique's cinematography just because it's just colorful. Again, getting away from the early dreary dark we got from the Snyder era, and kind of more shades of Aquaman and Wonder Woman, just being very very stark and bright. So looking forward to Wonder Woman 1984 in June. But yeah, I think it's not a movie I think people will truly ride for. Maybe there'll be scenes they really like to go back to, but you know, I had a good time with it.
I wanted to ask you, was there any, I have one in particular, I want to see if we're on the same wavelength. Was there a casting that really felt like it was puzzling to you, or maybe just like a miscasting or like a wasted casting?
That's interesting. I really liked Mary Elizabeth Winstead when I got the news because she's a really talented actress, and I kind of would have liked more from her Huntress. And I think when we're getting her, she's like the overwhelming lack of self-awareness that she's bringing to her character. You know, the crossbow killer, as people keep telling her, she's like, "No, I'm Huntress." Like that started landing really well, I think, towards the end. But she's kind of on the periphery of the story for the first two acts. Yeah, I thought Rosie Perez was pretty solid, kind of an inspired choice. I wasn't familiar with Journey Smollett Bell, and the girl who plays Cassandra Cain is pretty new. So nothing really jumped out to me. What did you have in mind?
You know, and this is like a bit character, but Ali Wong playing the AD, I was like waiting for that moment where she gets to be hilarious Ali Wong, you know, doing something like one of her bits or one of her voices. And just as her playing a straight person, I was like, this just feels like, I don't know, maybe her agent's trying to get her into more serious stuff. It was just so random to me in the end. Maybe they'd want to have an Asian person do it. It was, I don't know.
Yeah, he was a check. I don't know. Small role to have a big check attached to it, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I have to imagine so. Yeah, but I actually thought Chris Messina as Zaz was probably the person that stood out to me in this. He was like menacing and just insane, and I couldn't like place him. I was like, where do I know this guy from? And I remember him mostly from the Newsroom, but also like we saw him in Sharp Objects, just last year. So
2018.
He's a good actor. 2018, 2 years ago. Any last thoughts before we wrap up on Birds of Prey?
No, it's another step in the right direction for DC, something that's been said for 5 movies now.
We're going to be saying
4 movies. Ever since Justice League, that's all we've been hearing.
We're going to be saying that till the end of time.
Yeah. Good job. Step in the right direction once again.
Yep, just constant kids' gloves with